What if Toyota has been quietly building the one thing that could make today's electric vehicles look outdated faster than anyone expected? While the world has been watching Tesla fight for attention, BYD floods the market with cheaper EVs, and new electric brands appear almost every month. Toyota has been moving differently. No loud promises every week. No dramatic launch event every few months. No constant race to look futuristic. Instead, Toyota has been working in the background on something far more important than screens, acceleration, or flashy designs: the battery, and not just a slightly better battery. Toyota is talking about a solid-state battery, the kind of technology that many experts have called one of the biggest possible breakthroughs in the entire EV industry. A battery that could charge much faster, a battery that could last longer, a battery that could be safer, and most importantly, a battery that could give electric vehicles the kind of range that would make many drivers finally stop worrying about charging altogether. That is why this story has created so much attention. Toyota is not some small startup making wild claims to attract investors. This is Toyota, the same company that changed the car world with the Prius, the same company that made hybrid technology normal before many people even believed hybrids had a future. The same company is known for waiting, testing, refining, and only releasing technology when it believes the product is ready for real customers. And that is what makes this announcement so interesting. Toyota has not been the loudest player in the EV race. For years, critics said Toyota was moving too slowly. They said Tesla had already taken the lead. They said BYD was becoming unstoppable. They said Toyota was stuck in the hybrid era, while the rest of the industry was racing toward fully electric vehicles. But what if Toyota were not falling behind? What if Toyota were waiting for the right moment? Because if this solid-state battery works the way Toyota believes it can, the EV race may not be decided by who launched the most cars first. It may be decided by who solves the battery problem first. And right now, Toyota is trying to position itself as the company that could do exactly that. But to understand why this matters so much, we first need to look at the problem almost every EV buyer still thinks about, even if automakers do not like to talk about it. Electric vehicles are exciting, but they are not perfect. That is the part many advertisements try to hide. EVs look clean. They drive smoothly. They feel futuristic. They can be very quick. And for many people, they are already great daily vehicles. But beneath all the excitement, there are still problems that stop millions of buyers from making the switch. The first problem is range anxiety. This is the fear that the battery will run out before the driver reaches the next charger. It sounds simple, but in real life, it changes the entire driving experience. A petrol or diesel driver does not usually plan every trip around a fuel station. They know they can stop, refill in a few minutes, and keep going. But an EV driver often thinks differently. They check the range, they check the charger location, they check the charger speed. They wonder if the station will be working. They wonder if there will be a line. That small stress changes how people feel about the car. A vehicle might claim 400 kilometers or 500 kilometers of range. But drivers know real life is different. Hot weather changes the range. Cold weather changes the range. Highway speeds change the range. Air conditioning changes the range. Hills, traffic, passengers, and cargo all change the range. So the number on the brochure is not always the number people experience on the road. And once that range starts dropping, the driver is no longer simply driving. They are managing the battery. They slow down. They turn off comfort features. They watch the percentage. They start calculating the distance in their head. And that is not how most people want to feel when they buy a new car. The second problem is charging time. This may be the biggest reason many people still hesitate. Even with fast chargers, EV charging usually takes much longer than filling a fuel tank. A quick stop can become 30 minutes. A long trip can require planning around charging stations. And if there are other cars waiting, the delay becomes even worse. For people who mostly charge at home, this may not be a major issue. But not everyone has a home charger. Millions of people live in apartments. Many park on the street. Some rely on public charging. And in smaller towns or rural areas, reliable charging can still be limited. This is where the dream of EV ownership meets daily reality. The third problem is battery degradation. Every battery gets weaker over time. People already understand this from mobile phones. A phone works great when it is new. Then, after a few years, the battery does not last as long. The same idea applies to EVs, except the stakes are much higher. A phone battery is annoying. An EV battery is expensive. Buyers worry about what happens after 5 years. or 7 years, or once the warranty expires. They wonder how much range will be left. They wonder what the resale value will look like. They wonder if replacing the battery will cost more than the vehicle is worth. That fear is real. The fourth issue is safety. EV fires are rare compared to the total number of vehicles on the road. But once a video spreads online, it changes public perception. People see smoke, flames, or a car burning for hours, and they remember it. Even if the situation is uncommon, the image stays in their mind. For a buyer who is already unsure, one viral video can create doubt. And then there is the biggest issue behind all of these problems: the battery itself. The battery is the heart of an EV. It determines the range. It affects the cost. It affects the weight. It affects charging speed. It affects performance. It affects safety. It affects how long the car remains useful. So when Toyota says it may have a better battery, it is not talking about a small upgrade. It is talking about changing the most important part of the entire electric vehicle. That is where solid-state technology comes in. Most EVs today use lithium-ion batteries. Inside those batteries is a liquid electrolyte. You do not need to be a scientist to understand the basic idea. The battery has materials that store and release energy. The electrolyte helps ions move between parts of the battery during charging and discharging. That movement is what allows the battery to work. The problem is that the liquid electrolyte also creates limits. It can be sensitive to heat. It can contribute to safety risks. It can limit how fast the battery can charge. It can affect long-term wear. And because of those limits, automakers have to carefully manage temperature, charging speed, and battery chemistry. Now imagine replacing that liquid with a solid material. That is the basic idea behind a solid-state battery. Instead of liquid inside the battery, there is a solid electrolyte. This one change could unlock several major advantages. The battery could become more stable. It could potentially store more energy in the same space. It could support faster charging. It could last longer. And it could reduce some of the safety concerns connected to liquid electrolytes. This is why the industry has been chasing solid-state batteries for years. But here is the catch. Solid-state batteries are not easy to make. That is the part people often miss. It is one thing to create a promising battery in a lab. It is another thing to produce millions of them in factories, at a price normal people can afford, with consistent quality, year after year. This is where many battery dreams have slowed down. Science can look exciting, but manufacturing can become a nightmare. Toyota knows this, and that is why it has been so careful. The company has spent years working on solid-state technology. It has filed a large number of patents. It has talked about breakthroughs, but it has also been cautious about timelines. Toyota understands that if it launches this battery too early and something goes wrong, the damage could be huge. A failed battery is not like a bad infotainment screen. It affects safety, cost, trust, and the entire reputation of the vehicle. Toyota's entire brand is built on reliability, so it cannot afford to turn this into a rushed experiment. That is one reason this story feels different from many other EV announcements. Some companies promise huge breakthroughs because they need attention. Toyota does not usually operate that way. It may be slower, but it is also more methodical. It tests, it delays, it refines, and when it finally moves, the industry pays attention. Now, the first claim that gets people excited is charging speed. This is where Toyota's solid-state battery could change the everyday EV experience. Because for most people, charging is not just about numbers. It is about convenience. Imagine pulling into a charging station on a highway. Instead of waiting 40 minutes, your car is ready again in a few minutes. Instead of planning your trip around charging stops, the charging stop becomes almost as normal as getting fuel. Instead of sitting there watching the battery percentage slowly crawl upward, you plug in, take a quick break, and leave. That kind of experience could change how people think about EVs. Today, fast charging is possible, but it still has limits. Batteries heat up. Charging too quickly can stress the cells. Automakers have to balance speed with battery health. They do not want owners damaging their batteries every time they use a fast charger. Solid-state batteries could change that balance. Because the internal structure is more stable, the battery may be able to handle faster energy movement with less stress. That does not mean every solid-state battery will magically charge instantly, but it does mean the technology has the potential to push charging much closer to the speed people actually want. And this matters more than people realize. The biggest barrier to EV adoption is not always range. Sometimes it is time. Drivers are used to refueling quickly. That habit has existed for decades. If EVs are going to replace petrol and diesel cars at a global level, charging cannot feel like a major lifestyle adjustment forever. Toyota understands this. A car that charges quickly becomes easier to sell. It becomes easier to use for long trips. It becomes more practical for families. It becomes more useful for taxi drivers, delivery drivers, and people who do not have time to sit around waiting. But charging speed is only one part of the story. The second claim is range. And this is the part that really makes competitors nervous. Toyota has discussed the possibility of EVs with extremely long driving range using advanced battery technology. Some reports and industry discussions have mentioned numbers around 800 to 1,000 kilometers under certain conditions. Even if the real-world range is lower, the idea alone is powerful. Because range anxiety disappears when the range becomes so large that people stop thinking about it. Most drivers do not travel hundreds of kilometers every day. They commute, they run errands, they take short trips, they may drive longer distances on weekends or holidays. So if an EV could travel far enough that most people only need to charge once a week, the psychology of ownership changes completely. The car no longer feels like something that must be managed every day. It feels normal. That is the real breakthrough. A long-range EV does not just help road trips. It helps confidence. It helps resale value. It helps families. It helps people in places where the charging infrastructure is not perfect. It helps buyers who want an EV but do not want to feel trapped by charging locations. This is why a 1,000-kilometer target gets so much attention. It is not just a number. It represents freedom from one of the biggest fears holding EVs back. But long range also creates another advantage. It could reduce how often the battery needs to be charged. And if the battery charges less often, that could help reduce wear over time. For many owners, this means the vehicle may feel reliable for longer. And that connects directly to Toyota's strongest selling point, trust. Toyota buyers are not always chasing the newest gadget. Many of them want something that works, something that lasts, something they can keep for years without feeling like they made a risky decision. That is where Toyota could become very dangerous in the EV market. Tesla made EVs exciting. BYD made EVs cheaper and more available. But Toyota could make EVs feel safe, familiar, and long-lasting for the average buyer. And that might be the most powerful position of all. The mass market does not always move because of hype. It moves when people feel confident. That brings us to safety. One of the biggest promises of solid-state batteries is improved safety. Again, this does mean nothing can ever go wrong. Every technology has risks. But removing the liquid electrolyte could reduce certain dangers found in conventional lithium-ion batteries. Liquid electrolytes can be flammable. They can contribute to thermal runaway under certain extreme conditions. This is one reason EV battery packs require careful management, cooling systems, protective structures, and software controls. A solid electrolyte may reduce some of these risks. For Toyota, that matters deeply. Because safety is not just an engineering feature, it is a marketing weapon. If Toyota can convince buyers that its EV battery is safer, more stable, and less likely to create fear, it gains a major advantage. People do not only buy cars with logic, they buy with emotion, they buy based on trust, they buy based on what they believe will protect their family. And Toyota has spent decades building that kind of trust. That is why this battery could be bigger than just performance. It could become part of Toyota's identity in the EV era. The company could say, while others rushed into electric vehicles, we waited until the battery was ready. We waited until the technology was safer. We waited until it could last. That message would connect with millions of buyers who still feel unsure about EVs. But here is where the story gets complicated. If solid-state batteries are so good, why are they not already everywhere? The answer is simple, but it is not easy. Manufacturing. This is the billion-dollar obstacle, and it is the reason solid-state batteries have remained a future promise for so long. Making a solid-state battery on a small scale is one challenge. Making it at automotive scale is another. The materials can be expensive. The production process can be difficult. The battery layers must be extremely precise. Defects can ruin performance. The battery must survive vibration, temperature changes, years of charging, and the harsh reality of daily driving. A car battery does not live an easy life. It sits in the heat. It sits in the cold. It deals with potholes. It deals with fast charging. It deals with long trips. It deals with people who do not treat their cars gently. It must work reliably, not once, not twice, but thousands of times. That is why Toyota is cautious. It does not want a battery that looks amazing in a test, but struggles after years on the road. It does not want a product that creates excitement at launch and disappointment later. Toyota's entire strategy depends on durability. This is also why skeptics remain cautious. The battery industry has seen big claims before. Companies have promised breakthroughs. Startups have shown impressive prototypes. Automakers have teased future technology. But the road from prototype to mass production is brutal. Timelines slip, costs rise, technical problems appear. Scaling takes longer than expected. So while Toyota's solid-state battery could be revolutionary, it is not guaranteed to arrive overnight. And even when it does arrive, it may not appear first in affordable mass-market cars. It may start in premium models, limited production vehicles, or special applications where cost is less of a problem. That would make sense. New technology is usually expensive. Then production improves, then costs fall. Then it spreads to more vehicles. That is how many automotive technologies have entered the market over time. But even a limited launch would send a powerful signal, because once Toyota proves the battery works in real vehicles, the race changes. Tesla, BYD, Hyundai, Volkswagen, Honda, Mercedes, BMW, and every other major automaker would have to respond. The question would no longer be whether solid-state batteries are possible. The question would be who can scale them fastest. And this is where Tesla and BYD come into the story. Tesla has been the face of the EV revolution for years. It changed the way people think about electric cars. It made EVs fast, desirable, and technologically exciting. It built a charging network that gave it a major advantage. It pushed battery costs down and forced legacy automakers to take EVs seriously. But Tesla's advantage is not untouchable. If another company brings a major battery breakthrough to market, Tesla has to respond. Because battery technology sits at the center of Tesla's entire business. Range, charging, cost, performance, and margins all depend on batteries. Tesla already works heavily on battery innovation. But if Toyota can deliver a safer, faster charging, longer range solid-state battery, Tesla cannot ignore it. BYD faces a different kind of pressure. BYD is one of the strongest battery and EV companies in the world. Its Blade battery helped give it a reputation for safety, cost control, and durability. BYD's strength comes from vertical integration. It builds batteries, it builds vehicles, it controls more of its supply chain than many competitors. That gives it a massive cost advantage. But Toyota's solid-state battery could challenge BYD differently. BYD dominates today's practical battery market. Toyota is trying to leap toward the next generation. If Toyota succeeds, BYD would need to prove that its own battery roadmap can match or beat that future. This does not mean Toyota automatically wins. BYD is fast. Chinese battery companies are extremely aggressive. Tesla is not standing still. Other companies are investing heavily. But Toyota's entering the race with serious, solid-state ambitions changes the pressure. It tells the industry that the next EV battle may not be about who has the biggest touchscreen or the quickest 0 to 60 time. It may be about who has the battery that customers trust the most. And that is a battle Toyota understands. There is also another layer here. Toyota's slow EV strategy has been criticized for years. Many analysts said Toyota missed the moment. They said the company relied too long on hybrids. They said it underestimated pure EV demand. But Toyota may see the market differently. Toyota has always believed in a multipath strategy. Hybrids, plug-in hybrids, hydrogen, fuel cells, and electric vehicles all play different roles, depending on the country, infrastructure, energy grid, and customer needs. Toyota did not want to bet everything on one solution before the technology and infrastructure were ready. Critics saw hesitation. Toyota may have seen risk management. And now, with solid-state batteries, Toyota may be trying to enter the EV race at a more mature stage. Instead of fighting only with today's lithium-ion technology, it wants to bring something that changes the terms of the competition. That is why this story feels almost like a delayed attack. Toyota let others spend years building the EV market. Tesla made people want EVs. BYD made them cheaper. Governments built incentives. Charging networks expanded. Consumers became more comfortable with electric driving. Then, Toyota steps forward and says, "We may have the battery that fixes what still bothers people." That is a powerful position, but it also creates a huge expectation. If Toyota delivers, it could reshape the industry. If it fails or delays too long, Critics will say it was just another promise. That is the tension behind this entire story. The global impact could be massive. If solid-state batteries become practical, the EV market changes far beyond Toyota. Charging infrastructure would change. If cars charge faster, stations can serve more vehicles per day. That means less waiting, fewer lines, and better highway travel. Charging businesses could become more profitable because each charger could handle more customers. The oil industry could feel long-term pressure. If EVs become easier to live with, more buyers will switch. Oil demand for passenger vehicles could gradually weaken over time. This would not happen overnight, but major energy shifts rarely do. They happen slowly, then suddenly. Governments would also react. Many countries are already pushing for cleaner transportation. But one reason EV policies face resistance is practicality. People ask fair questions. Where will I charge? How long will it take? What happens in cold weather? How long will the battery last? If solid-state batteries answer some of those questions, governments may push even harder. Emissions rules could tighten. EV incentives could shift. Cities may accelerate plans to reduce petrol and diesel vehicles. Developing countries could also be affected. Right now, EV adoption is uneven. Wealthier countries with better charging infrastructure move faster. Developing markets face bigger challenges. Cost matters more. Reliability matters more. Charging access is harder. Heat, road conditions, and power supply can create problems. A durable, long-range, fast-charging battery could make EVs more realistic in those markets, especially for taxis, delivery vehicles, buses, and commercial fleets. These vehicles need to run often. Downtime costs money. Charging speed and battery life are not just conveniences. They affect business survival. Toyota understands global markets better than almost anyone. Its vehicles are everywhere. From large cities to remote areas, from wealthy markets to developing countries. Toyota knows that a technology is not truly successful unless it works in real-world conditions across the planet. That is why the solid-state battery matters so much. It is not just about building a better luxury EV. It is about building a battery that can eventually work at scale across different climates, different roads, and different customer needs. Still, the biggest question remains: when will it actually arrive? Toyota has talked about future timelines, but the company has also been careful. That is intentional. Battery development is difficult, and Toyota does not want to promise a date it cannot meet. It knows that public expectations can become dangerous. If it announces too much too early, every delay becomes a headline. So Toyota is moving carefully. The battery may arrive first in a limited form. It may appear in a high-end vehicle. It may be tested in special programs. It may scale slowly before reaching mainstream models. That would not be surprising. In fact, it would be very Toyota. First, prove it works. Then improve production. Then reduce cost. Then expand. This strategy may frustrate people who want instant results, but it is also why Toyota has survived for so long. The company does not usually chase short-term excitement at the expense of long-term reliability. And this is where the story becomes almost ironic. For years, Toyota was criticized for being too slow. But if solid-state batteries become the next major EV leap, Toyota's patience may look very different in hindsight. What looked like hesitation could be seen as preparation. What looked like weakness could become a strategy. The same thing happened with hybrids. When Toyota launched the Prius, many people did not take it seriously. It looked unusual. The market was uncertain. Some people thought hybrids were just a temporary experiment, but Toyota kept improving the technology. Over time, hybrids became normal. Then they became trusted. Then they became one of Toyota's greatest strengths. Now, Toyota may be trying to repeat that pattern with solid-state batteries, not by being the loudest, by being the most prepared. But the company cannot rely on reputation alone. The EV market is moving quickly. Tesla is cutting costs and improving manufacturing. BYD is expanding globally. Chinese brands are moving at a shocking speed. Battery companies are developing new chemistries. Governments are changing rules. Consumers are becoming more demanding. Toyota has to deliver, because the next few years could decide which automakers lead the next phase of transportation. And in that phase, the battery will matter more than almost anything else. Screens can be copied, designs can be copied, software can improve. But a truly superior battery is much harder to match. It requires chemistry, patents, manufacturing, supply chains, quality control, and years of testing. That is why Toyota's solid-state battery story has captured so much attention. It sits at the center of every major EV question. Can EVs charge as fast as people want? Can they drive far enough to end range anxiety? Can batteries last long enough to protect resale value? Can safety concerns be reduced? Can costs eventually fall enough for the mass market? Can the technology scale beyond luxury cars? Toyota believes the answer could be yes, but belief is not enough. The company must prove it on the road, and that is the part everyone is waiting for. If Toyota succeeds, the EV market may enter a completely new phase. Tesla would no longer be judged only on software and acceleration. BYD would no longer be judged only on cost and scale. Every automaker would be forced to explain its battery roadmap. Customers would start asking a new question before buying an EV. Does it have a solid-state battery? That one question could change everything. Dealers would use it as a selling point. Reviewers would compare it. Governments would study it. Competitors would rush to catch up. Investors would shift attention toward companies that can produce next-generation batteries at scale. And for normal drivers, the change could be simple. Less waiting, less worrying, less battery fear, more confidence. That is what the EV industry has been chasing from the beginning. Not just a car that is an electric car, but a car that feels as convenient and dependable as what people already know, while offering something better. Toyota's solid-state battery could be the bridge between EV excitement and mass-market trust. But until the first real vehicles arrive, the story remains unfinished. That is what makes it so powerful. It is not just an announcement. It is a question hanging over the entire industry. Did Toyota wait too long? Or did Toyota wait just long enough? Because if this battery delivers on even part of its promise, the company that many people accused of falling behind could suddenly become one of the most important players in the next generation of electric vehicles. Tesla changed how the world saw EVs. BYD changed how fast EVs could scale. But Toyota may be trying to change what people expect from the battery itself. And if that happens, the entire race resets. The most interesting part is that Toyota does not need to convince everyone right now. It only needs to prove the technology works. Once it does, the conversation changes instantly. The doubts become curiosity. The curiosity becomes demand. And demand becomes pressure on every other automaker. That is why Tesla, BYD, and the rest of the industry are watching closely. Because Toyota is not just building another EV, it may be building the battery that makes the next generation of EVs possible. And years from now, people may look back at this moment and realize that while everyone was distracted by price cuts, new models, and charging networks, Toyota was quietly working on the one thing that could matter most: the heart of the electric car, the battery. And if Toyota gets that right, the future of EVs may look very different from what people expected. So the real question is not whether Toyota can make headlines today. The real question is whether Toyota is about to do with solid-state batteries what it once did with hybrids. Start slowly, get doubted, keep improving, and then change the entire industry before anyone fully realizes what happened.